and standing historically in the league?
Well, I mean, I think people would just start to view him more as a winner. I think people look at him right now as being an incredible hockey player, a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the great goal scorers in the history of our game, but somebody that was never able to get his team over the hump. There's a lot of people that love to crap on him for that, especially the Crosby lovers, to say that this guy isn't a winner, that he's a me guy. And obviously, if the way he's playing right now will change that perception. I mean, this is a great team, but you just look at him on the ice, and he looks absolutely determined to lift his team to new heights, and so it would absolutely change his legacy if he can get them over the hump and to, obviously not just the Stanley Cup final, but being able to lift that trophy. I mean, it honestly gives me goosebumps to just think of what it would be like to watch Gary Bettman hand him the trophy and what his reaction would be, because I do think that you see it in his face right now. He wants to lift this team to something special.
Let's do Twitter questions, by the way. Sometimes our questioners get a little frustrated when their questions don't get asked on the podcast. Gotta understand, sometimes we've already addressed what you've asked about. Sometimes your question is redundant after another one. So I just try to be as fair as I can. I do appreciate everybody sending them in. We do try to get to as many as we can that fit into the context of the show. From Justin Wiggins, there's been talk of taking advantage of Stahl's trade value and contract and moving him, but what kind of return would that be for the Wild?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say right now. He is still a guy that is a year out from unrestricted free agency after this year, and I think that any other team would also look at him as somebody that's like, is he really going to score 42 again in our situation? In their situation. So I don't think that his trade value is crazy. You're not going to get a bunch of young, multiple assets and young picks or high draft picks and things like that for him. The thing that's scary to me about trading Eric Stahl is then what do you have up the middle? You better make sure that you get something up the middle, because right now, obviously they don't have Hull anymore. Mikko's coming off a down postseason and is only getting older, and who's scoring for you? So I just, to me, it's a risk. It's not as easy. I get why people say this, but I think that it should be investigated. But it should only be investigated as long as the new GM knows that he is going to get another top center in here. And that, to me, is the only way you could trade an Eric Stahl.
Right. From our friend Luke Cahill, number one, he misses us. Number two, is it realistic to expect GMs to recognize players who elevate in the playoffs from those who don't have that gene prior to drafting or trading for them? In other words, can GMs identify players who are going to be good in the playoffs, or is that asking too much?
I don't know. I mean, that's why they get paid. They're supposed to forecast. That's why you have a scouting staff. That's why you should get to know these guys in terms of their character, their fitness level, their talent and things like that. But it's a crapshoot. Big game players versus not big game players, and right now the Wild don't seem to have those guys. I mean, and that's just a fact. I'm not just trying to be negative. I mean, this is 6 straight years that this team hasn't gotten over the hump with the same core players. So there just needs to come a point where you look at this realistically, and I think that's why the move was made on Chuck Fletcher, because otherwise, 6 straight postseasons is not something that should be just taken lightly. I mean, it's a heck of an accomplishment in a league where teams miss the playoffs all the time, good teams with more talent even than the Wild. But there just comes a point now where you have to look at the management and say it's time for a new set of eyes, and that's what Craig Leopold's doing right now.
From our friend Mike Burgoyne, did you find Granlund's quote about Finland being all about the team and not individuals interesting, or am I reading too much into it?
I did not see that quote, so
I didn't either.
Tweet that to me, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't see the quote, and if it was a quote that was in Finnish, I just think that is hard to get the context. I wouldn't want to even read anything into it without me being the one that say it in English and been able to ask follow-ups. But if you can send me the quote, that'd be cool.
Okay, Mike, send him the quote if you can. From Mike Auditore, I apologize if I get your name wrong. Is there a possibility of an amnesty buyout for the next CBA? If so, who would the Wild buy out?
No. Oh, there's not a possibility of that. If there was a lockout, maybe you come out of the lockout with some sort of compliance buyout, but I don't see that it's not just going to be negotiated into the CBA.
Right. From Jeff Ruland on Twitter, what is the timeline for Seattle, and when can I go watch the Wild there?
2021.
All right. From Carson, with the Jets team looking like they could now be a juggernaut in the Central, are there players on that team that other teams could offer contracts so the Jets would then have to match or lose a player?
Well, you're asking if they have any Group 2 free agents this offseason. They have a couple, but not anybody that somebody's going to give an offer sheet to that's going to make them match. I mean, off the top of my head, their Group 2s are Jacob Trouba, and my guess is that they trade Trouba this summer. I really do. I know Tucker Pullman is definitely an RFA because I was just talking to his agent in the lobby of the hotel. I think Josh Morrissey's an RFA. Adam Lowry, Joel Armia. They have a lot of guys, actually. I think Brandon Tanev. I mean, they have a lot of guys that are restricted free agents, but not anybody that other teams are going to offer something to that's going to make them have to, all of a sudden freak out and match something, some crazy contract. But look, Stasny is an unrestricted free agent because they have so many guys to re-sign, because they have so many kids in their pipeline, because they got to prepare to re-sign Blake Wheeler. My guess is that they're going to let Stasny go. I'm sure they'd love to re-sign him. Unstrom does come off the books this year, but look, when teams get good, they usually get paid. The same thing is going to happen in Vegas. They got a ton of guys that they're going to have to sign as well, including William Karlsson. So Trouba is the one guy, after what he put them through last year with the holdout and things like that, and making it clear that he wanted to essentially just play in Detroit. My guess is that the Jets will try to trade him this offseason, probably to Detroit.
Wow, somebody wants to play in Detroit more than anywhere else. That's just bizarre to me. I know. Yeah. I'm being snarky. Detroit's actually, the city has improved a great deal the last few years, but it's just
it's like,
look,
often. I mean, yeah, but I mean, he's from there, and
right.
Players have those wishes. A couple years, I'll get all the tweets asking me, the Wild going to go after Drew Doughty. Look, Drew Doughty's either going to sign in LA or he wants to play in Toronto, and we all know that. So, I mean, every team, every player has those type of wishes. We obviously saw that where Suter and Parise wanted to play. Trouba, I think, wants to get out of here. If he looks at this team now realistically and wants to win, this is the team, to me, that you'd rather be on. But, frankly, it might not even be his choice at this point. He's going to command a lot of money. He's having an absolutely fabulous postseason, had a good year. And, after what, again, his agent put this team through a couple years ago, I can very well see with all the guys that have to be resigned this year and next year that Kevin Cheveldayoff will just say adios this summer to Trouba.
Learn something new about Tony Hoaglund this week, Mike. You get your insurance through Tony, State Farm agent who works out of Champlin. I get my insurance through Tony. And my wife started using their app this week, and it made everything so easy. I mean, we've never been to Tony's office. Everything we've done has been just easy phone call, email, whatever. But now we have an app, and we can do all of our work with Tony just by using the app and printing out our own stuff. It's just made everything really easy. So check out that. It's Tony, Hoaglund.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number one in car insurance since World War II and number one in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
All right, let's hit a few more Twitter questions.
By the way, Jim, I just looked up Winnipeg's. I don't know how we got on this topic so much from that question, but I just looked up Winnipeg's contracts, and Connor Hellebuck is also an RFA this summer. So those would be the two guys. But again, offer sheets are a rarity in the NHL. But this is a huge offseason for them in terms of having a re-sign. I was right on, Hellebuck, Joe Morrow, Josh Morrissey, Tucker Pullman, Jacob Trouba, Marco Deneau, Brandon Tanev, Joel Armia, and Adam Lowry. A lot of guys that they got to re-sign this offseason. And I was right. Blake Wheeler is UFA next year. Tyler Myers is UFA next year. Ben Sherrod is UFA next year. So, man, I would say that it'd be very hard for them to re-sign Stasny this summer, and I'll stick by my that they might trade Trouba.
Interesting. From Nikolai, will the Wild have a new GM by the end of the week?
Unless they're just going to tell Tom Fitzgerald not to get on the plane, my guess is they take through the weekend. But as far as I know through sources, that Fitzgerald is meeting with them Thursday, having dinner Thursday night, and leaving Friday. So if you're considering the end of the week, Friday might be a little bit of a long shot, but we'll see. I wouldn't mind it. I'm in town Friday.
Yeah. From Davis Bailey,
and I leave Saturday again for Winnipeg if there's a Game 5. So man, it'll be a little stressful end of the week for me. That's for sure.
But you handle stress well, so it's not really a problem.
I know. But I guess theoretically I don't have to be in town. We have chat and I can write from afar. But man, it'd be nice to be in town during the press conference.
Yeah, I think you would have some kind of heartache if you weren't there.
Yeah, I would say.
From Davis Bailey, now that the Wild is down to 2 finalists for GM, what would you see as the biggest differences between the two and how their approaches differ?
Well, just experience. I mean, just again, and this is an elementary thing, just looking at the two of them, but one would be kind of that, a newbie, fresh approach, closer to playing, even though, I mean, Tom's 49. I still look at him as young, but he's 49 years old, but played 1,000 games in the league. Has a brash style, probably wouldn't be afraid to walk in that locker room and kind of say, sit down with Amico and say, you're a third line center, and sit down with different players and saying, this is the way it's going to be. I think he's probably got great creative ideas and things like that. In terms of tons of experience, has been around for 18 years in Nashville, has been in the player development role, drafting, things like that. But the thing with Tom is that he's got this personality that kind of has got that charismatic personality that is probably going to get along with Leopold really well. Fenton, is a lot more. He's a lot like he played. Kind of honest, hard nosed, but very much straight and narrow. Maybe not as enthusiastic of a personality, at least from the outgoing. I know Fitzy a lot better than I know Fenton. I think the concern with Paul from others that I hear is that there's a reason why maybe he's interviewed for all these jobs over the last 10 years or so and not gotten them. And I think that might even be something that is potentially a concern here for Craig Leopold. We'll see. But experience would be the biggest thing. Tom he for the last 9 years has been in a player development role, has been an assistant coach, has kind of learned from Ray Shiro. But the question is, and maybe I'll learn more this week, has he negotiated contracts? How is his scouting? How is his work ethic? I mean, that's all stuff that Craig Leopold's going to have to ascertain and feel comfortable with, where that Paul Fenton has that history of being in a front office for a long time, running a minor league team, things like that. So that would be my kind of long answer to that question.
3 more Twitter questions. Good question, by the way. 3 more Twitter questions, and then Michael's famous non-final thought or final non-thought. Let's see. I think you just answered Dan Seberg's question from UC Turvaharshiala. Okay, I got no shot. Turvaharshiala. Why is the Wild generally bad on acquiring free undrafted players from, for example, Europe or Russia? Lack of scouts or scouting?
Well, they didn't have a Russian scout until this past year, so I would agree there. They've had a couple European scouts that they have had for a long time. Pavel Ruda, who's been with Chuck Fletcher dating back to Florida, and Ricard Pearson, who used to play for the St. Louis Blues. And they seem to go with them in terms of drafted guys. I mean, they went with their recommendation of Joel Eriksson Ek over their North American scouts, who I believe wanted Brock Besser from everything I hear. But in terms of undrafted players, I mean, remember, that's only been around for like the last 8 or 9 years. Nicholas Backstrom was the most talented one that they've ever had, but they're just, and in this situation, they just signed this Martinson kid. But I'm told they actually were in on a couple other guys, and their agents of those players decided not to put them here because without a GM, you just don't know the future the team, whether the GM will like that player and things like that. So, I don't